Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole here on Connecting the Universe. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, my co-host is Victoria Mundae. And down in the chat room, Alina moderating the chat. Well, this evening, bit of a change of plans. Our guest, unfortunately, was unable to join us this evening. We are rescheduling for next month. So Geraldine Orozco will join us in May to talk about alien abduction and hybridization and her work as a clinical hypnotherapist. Very, very fascinating woman. So definitely looking forward to getting her on. So sorry that we don't have her on for tonight. So Victoria and I are kind of going to shoot from the hip here a little bit. I mean, we can talk about this particular subject. I really wanted to talk to Geraldine about her particular abduction scenario because of that whole loss of time aspect and the way that she described the mothership that she was brought into, and the way that you had this lack of time, and even the inside the mothership was like bigger than the way the mothership was, and the neighbors can see all these different things. I was like, man, I want to talk about this because of all my work with time and time travel and how time doesn't really exist and all that. So we're gonna have to wait another day.
another time
As it were, unfortunately. So Victoria,
hello.
you had some questions prepared and I had some questions prepared, so we could ask each other these questions, or we could just hit other topics. I think we could just kind of do a free-for-all. We could do like a maybe a Q&A down in the chat. What do you say?
Well, most of the things I wanted to speak to her about were about hybridization. That's hard to say. So maybe I'll save. There you go. So maybe I'll just save those for her. Nothing personal.
No, that's fine, because I mean, honestly, I wouldn't really be able to answer those anyway, because very personal nature for her, where she had actually been inseminated by these beings to create the human alien hybrid. And I've never carried a child, human or alien, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
It's a laugh riot, let me tell you.
Yeah, you enjoyed carrying, yeah?
Yeah, at least you get an epidural at the end.
Well, depending on how it goes.
I made sure I got one.
Yeah. Some people just go all natural and no epidural and just, yeah.
I had a friend that did that, and after a few hours, like 17 or 18 hours, her husband came into the store where we were working. It's like, don't go near. Just don't make me go back. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, my ex-wife with I'm trying to remember which one it was. I know it wasn't Cameron, because he came out like right away. Chase was pretty quick too. It had been one of the first two, Colin or Ariel, and she got to a point where she was just like, more drugs.
Yeah, drugs are good. In that case, drugs are good. But right. It's interesting that we're talking about pregnancy and stuff, because I was telling you earlier, I did have a missing time episode, and it was when I was pregnant. I had a high-risk pregnancy. I lost 40 minutes.
So let's talk about missing time. Let's talk about missing time. That could be our episode. I'll change the graphic and all that fun stuff. So go ahead.
That was it.
You experienced. Well, you had this whole incident. Come on, with the car, and you're driving, and like everything disappeared.
Yeah. Well, my background's in television, so everything is clockwork. We back time everything, so I am always on time. Just saying, I'm always on time. I'm just poking at her. And when I left the doctor, my baby's here now. He's down here. Okay. His lordship's here. I was going to have lunch with my husband, and I back timed it so I would get there. I had to be there at 1:00, and I should have gotten there at 12:45. So I'm driving along, and I'm going down. I'm in Houston, which is, as much as I love Houston, it's a very dirty town. I mean, there's a lot of trash. The yards are, because it's so tropical, the yards are always, one yard is nicely mowed, the other one's overgrown. So it's really hard to keep everything looking nice and neat. And I was stopped at a red light, and I was just looking around. I'm like, wow, it is so clean. I have never seen the city that's clean. And I was at an intersection. It was at Beech Nut and Chimney Rock. If anybody knows where that's a huge intersection. It's 3 lanes going one way, 3 lanes going out another way, same going across. And then there are huge bayous or ditches. So, I mean, there are huge, huge intersections. And it was just completely clean. The concrete was clean. There was no oil stains or anything on the ground. There's no trash. The yards were all manicured. I'm like, wow. And I'm looking around. And when
it was just completely pristine.
Yeah. And I was the only one there. It was just like out of a storybook. And and it's at lunchtime on a Wednesday. So, there should have been somebody else there.
Yeah.
Toby says hi. So I look up at the red light and I see something spinning and shining here right above it. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the heck is that? I'm like, oh my God, that's a UFO. The one time you want somebody around, and you're like, want to point it out and there's nobody there. And so I'm looking around, there's nobody there. I look up, there it is, light's still red. I'm looking up.
And I'm not sure how long ago this was. I mean, we're, just cell phone, you're not going to pop up the cell phone and take a photo?
It was in 93. So the cell phones were those big bricks.
Right. Okay, so that's not happening.
I always carried a camera with me. I didn't think about it, to be honest. I always had my digital.
Funny how that happens, where you're in the middle of the moment and you just don't think of it.
So many times, things have happened. I'm like, why didn't I try and take a picture of that? But usually I'm driving or something, and a lot of things happen when I'm driving and I'm kind of zoned out. So I think I'm like in a theta wave. So I'm not really, that.
It's a type of meditative state. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's when things happen all the time. And so I'm sitting there looking at it and there's still nobody around. So I'm watching the UFO, I'm watching the red light, UFO, red light. And this goes on for however long a red light goes, like three minutes or so. Mm-hmm. The light turns green. I go through the intersection, I look up, it's still there. I cross all 6 lanes. I cross over the bayou. I look up and it's gone. It's like, dang, darn, shoot.
Yeah, I think you can say damn on YouTube.
That's not what I really said, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So, and as I started driving, through the intersection, I started noticing on the other side of the intersection that, it was getting trashy again. The yards were getting overgrown, and I started seeing a couple cars coming my way. I'm like, well, where the heck were you? I mean, I wanted to show you, I wanted to point it out. So I went on, that was the only time I stopped was at that one red light. I went on, met my husband. He was working for a United Paramount Network. So it tells you how long ago it was, UPN. I get there and he's like, where the hell you been? I'm like, well, I went to the doctor, stopped at a red light, came here. He's like, you're late. You're 40 minutes late. I already had to go to lunch. I'm back already. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like,
yeah, all that time lost with you, 40 minutes while you were in the strange, pristine Houston. Yeah.
Well, you can say that about Houston all the time. But I never thought about that. I just thought it was just like one of those freaky things, Mm-hmm. I lost time, no big deal. And so a few years ago, I was on a podcast and I was telling the story to the host. He's like, okay, Vic, let me get this right. You were pregnant. You saw a UFO. You lost 40 minutes.
Yep.
You gonna put them together? I'm like, oh my God. Do you think I was taken aboard? I don't remember anything about it. I mean, I have no implants. I have no scars or anything. I have seen UFOs since then many times, but I've never lost time. But that was just so.
Yeah, you talked about another one before where you're kind of driving down the highway and it was above and you kept looking and like nobody else, at least that you could tell, saw the thing.
Yeah, and I was in my convertible, so my ponytail was flapping in the wind, and I'm pointing up on the 101, and I'm in Scottsdale, and people drive at you. They don't drive on the freeway. They're driving to kill, and nobody was looking up. And I don't know if it's because I saw it because I had a convertible and I could easily look up, or if everyone was just so focused on the road, or maybe it's just me, but it just slowly drifted over. It was a chevron shaped. It went from Sky Harbor out to Superstition Mountains.
Okay, so that one was chevron shaped. So that was different than the one that you saw over Houston.
Yeah, the one in Houston was round, and you stare at something long enough, and you can kind of see. The only way I could tell it was spinning is it was black on the bottom, and it would kind of shift every now and then, like it was some sort of reflection moving. And so I was watching it. It was completely round. It could have been the Death Star for all I know, but it was completely solid. But there was a band that went around the middle of it. And I could tell, I was staring at it long enough and hard enough that I could see the bottom of it shimmering. So I'm assuming it was rotating. That's the only way because there's nothing passing underneath it. So I don't know why else it would be shimmering like that. But
yeah. So
I don't know.
How soon was it after that you drove through that area again where, everything had looked pristine, there was nobody? How soon after that? And what did it look like then?
Oh, I came back home. So I just made a U-turn after, it's too
You
late
went
for
right
lunch.
through that area again. And
Yeah, and it was trashy, dirty.
Trashy, dirty. Okay. And there were people milling about and traffic and that. So it was just that one time when you drove through.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird.
That is kind of weird. And you were pregnant? How did the pregnancy go?
I had a high risk pregnancy. So I was actually, I had to stay home for 2 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which worked out fine for me because I had Thanksgiving, the holidays and New Year's Eve off. That was good for me.
Oh, so you had like that whole, okay. That's a good time to have off.
Planned pregnancy. I planned it that way. So from Halloween to after New Year's Eve, I was off. So, but she was okay. I mean, well, I did, she was breech. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
Okay.
So well, I mean, that is,
yeah. I mean, high risk pregnancy, breech birth. So that's a little bit different. Yeah. It's not like she came out with glowing eyes or was a squid or something, but.
No, we had all that taken off. All the extra tentacles were removed.
Yeah. So, but otherwise seemed like a normal child growing up.
No.
No.
No, I would definitely call her an indigo child because, I'm from the 80s. That's my frame of reference. And we would go into what they called new age stores at the time. And I would go, here, play with this. And I'd give her a pendulum and she'd scream at it, show me yes. And it would start spinning. I'm like, how the hell are you doing that? Because, I can't get those to work. But she's always been very intuitive. And one time, she wasn't even 18 months old. She's very over dramatic for a toddler. And so I had this table by my sofa with just family pictures on it and stuff. And my best friend Cheryl's picture was in the very, very back. So there's no way she could have seen it because, she had to pull herself up to even look at the front runs. And so I asked her, like, have you been here before? And she's like, yeah. I said, can you point to you? Which one are you? And she just went over there and reached over like the 3 rows of pictures and pulled it up. And it was my friend Cheryl. I'm like, oh my God, you act just like her too. So I don't know if there's some sort of connection because when she was little and she was wanting or learning to walk, babies kind of waddle, but she would hold her hand up like she was holding onto somebody's finger, like somebody was holding out her finger, helping her walk.
Interesting.
And I was like, so somebody was guiding her, I think. I don't know if it was Cheryl or if it was where we lived was part of where the original 300 settlers were for Texas, and there was not clear land deeds. But they built, subdivision there anyway.
Oh, is that the area you were in at the time?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if there was still some energy hanging over there because they're like, let's build here. There's no clear title. So there's a huge master plan community where, and later they found a cemetery, an African-American cemetery there, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And so they've been excavating it. So there's a lot of energy on that land too. So I don't know.
I mean, did she ever have, on occasion where, because I mean, this happened to me as a kid where I like my shadow incident, which I've since discovered through hypnosis that was actually an interaction with an interdimensional being from some other place that is not Earth. So did she ever have on occasion incidents like that where she was, interacting with some sort of, like maybe she said it was, a being or a friend or what, and you just kind of chalked it up to, well, I don't know if you did, my parents did, but because it got chalked up to like a bad dream or something like that. Or did she have like invisible friends or things like that?
I did. Growing up as a child, I had invisible friends. I've seen things my whole life. I've always tried to be open and honest with her, and I never hid, my beliefs or what I thought or what I saw or what I did. I would never make light of anything like that. And when I would tell her, oh, something happened to me today, she'd always be, she's always the skeptic. And so I told her, one time, because, we have all these cats, or we had all these cats. I told her I saw Zach, who she named after Zach Baggins for whatever crazy reasons.
Oh my gosh. No, she didn't.
Yeah, she did.
No.
Zach had a very short life with us, and he was very abused. He was broken. He literally had a broken face, and his spine was broken. He only stayed around for like 3 months, and then he passed on. But I told her one day, it was funny because every time I would sit down and watch The Next Generation, I would turn it on and bop, 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 the music would come on. Zach would come running down, and he would jump in my lap, and we would watch Star Trek together.
He liked that.
So, he was a cool cat. Anyway, so I told her I saw Zach, and she's like, "No, you didn't. You didn't see Zach." Blah 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 blah. And so we lived in this apartment. We lived on the second floor, but you had to open the door, and then there was an interior staircase, and then our apartment was upstairs.
Yeah.
So I was talking to her, and the hallway between our bedrooms was always kind of shadowy and dark and something. And so I was in the kitchen. I was talking to her, and she's like, "No, you don't." I'm like, "What?" And she goes running down the hall chasing the cat, and she goes to chase the cat down the stairs. And she comes back and she goes, "Where's the cat?" I'm like, "I don't know." And so something like that happened to her again. And I didn't know about it the second time. And she was just standing in the hallway with tears and mascara running down her face. And she was probably in her 20s by this time. And I was like, "What happened, honey?" And she's like, "I saw Zach." I was like,
"Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been telling you he's here."
Yeah.
So she finally started believing in at least the shadow parts. The other woo-woo stuff, she still, gave me a lot of crap about. And like, yeah, whatever.
What's interesting is because you have Toby now, but before, was it the last place that you guys were at together, and then you moved from there? It was like you guys were a magnet for cats, and I know she ended up like when you guys moved from there, she took a bunch of them, and you still have Toby. Yeah. So is that perhaps part of it that there's something about your energy, your frequency that it is attracting the cats to you guys?
I think so. She was always a skeptic, and I love her to death, but she was always a hard ass. She's very much like her father. I don't believe it. I have to see it on paper to believe it. But me, I'm always like, "Oh, look, the rainbow flowers," And so when I would leave and I'd go to work, I would always have this bubbly, believe it or not, I have a bubbly, upbeat energy. And there'd always be a damn cat there. So one day, because I work nights a lot, she went to work before me, and she sent me a text, and we used to feed this one feral cat. And she goes, we called it Screech because it was just a feral cat. She goes, "Screech is on the porch." I'm like, "Well, okay." And it was starting to rain. It's Houston, every time a cloud goes by, it floods. And she goes, and Screech has a kitten. I'm like, "What?" And so I go down there, and the rain's starting to come a little bit more. And so Screech is there, and she's up against the wall, and she's like leaning back, protecting herself, whatever's behind her. And so I scooted her by, and it was a kitten like this big. It was only a week old.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So, I got him, the rain's coming, the flood's coming. So I got him inside. It was not a fun thing to get him inside. I got the baby droppers, and, I fed the cat, and turned out to be the cute little cat. It was Corbin. I'm sure you remember Corbin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So another tuxedo cat. But as all these tuxedo cats kept coming, wherever we moved, it was always a tuxedo cat.
Right. And that's why I asked, because, if something, did happen, if there was some sort of abduction while you're pregnant, and, maybe they did something that, animals are super sensitive to all kinds of things. So there might be something that's very attractive to the energy, whether it's, whatever they may have done to you, whatever they may have done to her, that, the attraction by the cats could be indicative of that.
It could be. What if it was the cat? Isn't there a cat civilization?
No,
I'm serious. There is one.
There are.
Starts with an L. It's like Curians or something like that,
it's like L. Yeah, what is that? Somebody down there in the chat's got to know it. It's Lyrians.
Yeah,
the Lyrians, I believe. Yeah,
it's something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So speaking of the chat, we do have quite a few people in the house. Jack McCarthy's in the house with us tonight. Luli Tubi. It's been a while, Luli. I hope everything's going well. Of course, there is Alina. Michelle had this comment down here. She says, "Oh, I absolutely believe this. I've experienced something similar after my NDE. I met two young girls that partially resembled myself and my sons, but they had very large eyes, and the hair was very thin. thin. That is interesting. Yeah, could certainly be, you know, that's the interesting thing about some of these, hybrid cases. You hear about, these children or these people as they grow up, that they have, of course, a lot of these traits between the humans and whatever this particular alien race or extraterrestrial race might be. So it's this whole, and it is kind of interesting. Because I consider humans, I mean, to the whole rest of the universe, we are the extraterrestrials, right? So we're calling all these things extraterrestrials. We're just really all citizens of the universe, right? But I also believe that we're not originally here from Earth. We are from elsewhere out there in the cosmos. This isn't our first planet that we've had to colonize and live on, which means we've probably been out there in the universe before as a species, integrating with some of these others. So this might
wouldn't it make sense to diversify if like our original planet was a troubled planet, just put some of the people on another planet just in case the species wouldn't die if something would happen with the first planet?
Yeah, and this just might be a continuation of a plan that was already put into place. And yeah, that's the thing is because it's going to happen here. Our planet, it's 4.5 billion years old, which is a younger planet in the universe, at least as far as we've been able to calculate. Universe is about 14 billion years old, and that means the whole rest of the universe has had like 9 billion year jump on us. And there's even new science that's coming out now that says, well, it might be closer to 27 billion years old, which is like, okay, so it might even be older. Yeah, which means, yeah, and even our own solar system, this solar system was born out of another that went supernova, and it kind of recollected and everything. So so we have to get off this planet at some point. I mean, we have time, but as we do more to become a spacefaring race, I always encourage it. Do what we need to do here at home, take care of the people, but also, yes, keep progressing to go out in space, because at some point we'll need to get off of here, just like other civilizations around the universe have had to do that, including most likely us. So the idea that a race, civilizations have colonized other planets to branch out, find locations that would be suitable in it to inhabit life. Yeah, that's a real thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, a friend of mine, and you met her at Lone Star, my friend Sarah that was with me. She and I have had mirrored life experiences, and we weren't even friends because, geographic regions and stuff for like 30 years, but our lives have paralleled. And one of the things she told me is that when she was smaller, she had an experience where she was taken aboard a ship. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to our guests about. And they took her to like a nursery, and they said, this is your baby. And they wanted her to bond with the baby for a little bit. And she said it looked exactly like her, except for the eyes. The eyes were much larger than her eyes. But she said, otherwise, the instincts were there. The nurturing instincts were there. She didn't want to leave, but they're like, no, you need to go back. We'll come get you later, when it's time. So, maybe it's time.
Yeah, that's part of Geraldine's story. And Michelle Sierra was taken to a room on a spacecraft to meet them, and that's part of Geraldine's story. And for those that joined us expecting Geraldine Orozco tonight, she was unfortunately unable to join us this evening. We're going to reschedule her for May. But yeah, part of her story is that she did get to meet these children, and she could tell like right away that they were hers. They had these similar features. So it's really fascinating.
I wonder, are the hybrid children being raised elsewhere, or like what if? Because the first time I met Andrea, she goes, "You're a hybrid." I'm like, okay, and other people have told me that too, and I'm like, okay, there's something about the eyes, and so I'm starting to track all these things with various people I know, and we have so many shared experiences. I'm like, well, maybe Andrea's onto something. So like if I were to have, my child, so she would be a half hybrid or whatever, but she's being raised here on Earth. Would other hybrid children be raised in outer space or on other planets or the dark side of the moon, inside the moon?
or another dimension, because the whole
Cool.
and this is another thing I wanted to discuss with her, because the whole idea of going on to like this mothership and losing time, and like, while she may have been able to see it and the neighbors can't, and all that sort of stuff. Um, in not just her account, but accounts from other people as well. They go aboard this ship and they lose time. They, what we call the whole abduction scenario, and it's very, very similar. And you're talking about a spinning circle that's spinning, and sometimes they show up as different shapes, but there's similar stories to 150, 200, 250 years ago, when we start talking about fairies in the fairy realm and this sort of thing, where people get abducted and they end up in this realm of these different beings, and they lose all this time, where they think they're there for 5 minutes and it's been like an entire day, and they have no idea where that time went, because it worked very differently. So when people are taken aboard, what they're calling the mothership, is that really, maybe it is a ship, or some sort of structure or whatever it is, but is it actually in a different dimension? And that's why a lot of others might not actually see what's going on. Maybe they see the light or something like that, but maybe not necessarily the ship or the beings and that sort of thing. And then that experience on what they call the ship is actually another dimension, and maybe that's where some of these children are living. So it could be another dimension, another place in the universe. It could be another dimension right alongside us right here, because there's so much going on around us that we can't see with our own eyes. And
well, that would make sense. Like if your vibration or your frequency was different, that's supposedly what the fairy realm is. Like you can walk into like a forest. And we've always been warned about the forest. If you cross over the boundary and you're resonating at a different frequency, the fairies will come and get you. And if the fairies come and get you, they may not let you. They won't let you go.
They don't let you back. And that's why, that's the whole, like, the missing 411, David Paulides, all that sort of thing, where, you're walking alongside your buddy and all of a sudden your buddy disappears and he's never seen or heard from again. Or, some people do come back and they'll be talking about, I was, walking on the path in the woods, heard a noise off to the side, took 2 steps off the path to go see what it was, couldn't find what the noise was, turn around, and the path is gone. Where to go? So you hear stories like that. What did they step into? They step into, some sort of portal. They enter into some other dimension there for a while. And, the whole aspect of the losing time, to me, is when you consider the fact that all time is concurrent, past, present, future, here in what we call the fourth dimension of time. Well, hyperspatial theoretical physics at this point tells us there's up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions, 11 through 10. Well, if the fourth is time and you have access to everything beneath your own dimension, that means dimensions 5, 6, 7, 8 and onward have complete access to time, because they would see that as like a physical object, right? So if these beings are living in another dimension alongside of us, and they pull somebody into there, well, time's going to work very differently there, because it doesn't exist there. They're outside the river of time.
True. I think that's because I see a lot of shadows. I see things. See, if you want to call them ghosts, let's call them ghosts. If you want to call them whatever, I see things. I was driving towards Dallas a couple of months ago, and I was zoned out again. The rhythm of the road got you. And I looked over and I saw a bunch of cows and cowboys and Native Americans. And then I realized, I'm near the Chisholm Trail. So the way I always rationalized it was like, putting 2 negatives together and then looking through it, which creates it's like the Viewmaster, you're looking at a different frequency. And when you get to that frequency, that's when you can see things. So who knows? It's not that hard to get to that frequency, Wouldn't it be cool if we just teach people how to do that, and then everyone can see the extra realms and the extra dimensions? And
well, some people do. Some people do teach, and it's a meditation technique. Or people teach astral projection, or to go into different hypnotic states and things like this, to be able to access different dimensions, to talk to spirit guides. A lot of those different things. So yeah, I mean it's a fascinating art, I guess, for lack of a better term, skill to have. But people really do sit down and, have those types of experiences. Or, like you said, driving along and you go into that, kind of theta state. It's a type of meditative state. And then we miss our turns and things like that. Did that the other day, actually. Yeah.
We created a drinking game, a non-alcoholic drinking game for every time I missed the turn.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a type of meditative state. So it's like, at one of those times, is that where you suddenly drive off into the other dimension for a while?
Yeah, because it didn't look, because when I was driving, I could see the road in front of me. So I know I was not going to go off in the ditch or anything.
Yeah.
But the road wasn't there. I was still going over the mesas and the hills and stuff. I could see everything around me. And then you realize, hey, that's not supposed to be there. And you do the double take and the blink and shake your head and it's all gone. Right. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea of that is, because when you're in that meditative state, you've hit whatever frequency it is. And when all of a sudden you break out of that meditative state, it changes the frequency. And then, whatever you were just looking at is gone because you broke the state. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a lot of like the, don't know that word. It's a frequency. It's like SOL, FAGG. I'm sure you know what it is, Flagio or whatever, but it's a different meditative, their frequencies. Like if you want to work on abundance or manifestation or health or different issues, and the different frequencies you can hit. So it's all coming back to frequencies.
Right. Oh yeah. Everything is frequency, resonance, energy, vibration. Absolutely.
It's the energy donut.
Yeah, there you go. The Taurus. Well, everybody has their own toroidal fields of energy around them. So Scar says, I wonder if people that have small but impactful feelings of missing someone even far away, possibly a psych connection with the hybrids. Not everyone knows if they have had an abduction. Well, and that's true. Some people just don't know. Or they might have, they wonder why they have strange dreams about beings, or, odd things happen to them and things like that. And they might not have any idea all those strange things happen throughout their life and they're not sure why. So, a lot of times
that would also be precognitive, wouldn't it? Like if time doesn't exist, if there's no sprocket to be grounded into, you can just go back and forwards and stuff like that.
Well, you can. Yeah, technically you can. And so, something a handful of people have been telling me this for a while. You need to teach people how to time travel. It's like, well, I mean, okay, I'm not sure how to, go about doing that other than tell people, I believe it is absolutely possible. I believe, it has to do with meditation in the consciousness. I have tried it myself, and I did almost, astral project, almost had an out of body experience. Was I going to project into that other point in time? I have no idea, because I just kind of spooked myself when that started happening and jumped out of it. But
astral traveling is fun. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, you need to astral travel. It's fun. I think I told you a long time ago that there was a couple of friends and we were always together.
And so Michelle has it, solfeggio frequency. Yeah.
I'm from Texas. I can't say that word, but I knew what it was. But we would always say, hey, let's go into so-and-so's dream. When we're dreaming tonight, we're about to fall off. Let's say, okay, I'm going to go visit so-and-so, and I'm going to walk into her bedroom, and I'm going to say, I hope you get all the rest that you need, and have a wonderful evening. Don't interact. Don't try and manipulate. Don't do anything. And so we did this for 7 days. Finally, we all got back together again. We were having lunch, and my friend turned to me and she goes, you were in my dream the other night. I was like, really? What'd I do? She goes, you didn't do anything. You were just there, and then you left.
Just hanging out. Yeah.
And I was like, So it is possible.
I believe you can really do that. I mean, there was that film back in the 80s, Dreamscape, with Dennis Quaid, where they were doing that. And of course, the whole, because I have to have a massive plot. The plot was to get into the presidents of the United States dreams. And Dennis Quaid has to get the bad guy from the dreams. But, I do believe that is absolutely possible, because, we're talking about, we're talking about frequency. We're talking about energy, and, projecting that energy, just to another, point on the planet, which, we know people are able to do this. We know, remote viewing works. in all these sorts of things. And that is, the projection of energy and consciousness to, view something. Well, okay, so what happens, when you do that? I believe that, yes, there is, a part of you, like I don't know, an energy signature,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, that actually goes there, that maybe to the, 3D physical person, they might not be able to see it, but, but the soul, the consciousness can. And so if
Yeah.
she was asleep, then that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. And I did it for another time. Um, you know how girls are when they have a crush on a guy or something, they dream of him at night, And so there was a person I was dreaming of him,
I'll
and
take your word on that, but guys tend to do that too, have dreams of women. So, I can imagine.
pshaw. Anyway, this person and I were sitting on his sofa and we were watching a movie, and I turned and looked at him and I saw his kitchen, his dining room and everything. And then poof, I'm out. Well, when he and I'd never been to his house. So he put his house up for sale, like, a couple months later. And I'm flipping through the pictures because I'm nosy. I want to see what his
Right.
house looks like. It was exactly what I saw in my dream.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's just for a brief second, but is it because he was asleep and I was asleep and we connected, or was I just really trying to get into his house? Or
You traveled through time. Well, you set that intention. So there you go. You set that
yeah,
intention. You ended up traveling to, I guess it was the future house.
that was when he sold and I never saw him
Oh,
again.
when it
So
sold. Okay.
whatever,
All right.
whatever.
So Michelle is asking, is it making a sort of like an open conscious portal where all other dimensions can interact? I mean, I believe, yeah, we can interact with all these different dimensions. Absolutely. I mean, they're all around us, and it's just a matter of, setting that frequency and connecting with it. Now, the way it would, like, if we tried to see it with our physical eyes, that would be challenging to us because those have a different, actual physical geometric uh, difference from us. I probably just really butchered the way I worded that, but
I got it.
yeah. So physically, it would be a challenge for us to see, which is why we need to use our consciousness to be able to view that, because that's above these dimensions. Our consciousness is projecting in from elsewhere and has access to the universe and all these other dimensions and all time. And it's just a matter of, setting that intention, getting that frequency correctly, and then, getting the consciousness tuned into that. It's a synchronization, I believe.
Yeah, I read a few weeks ago that, like, for example, if you're going to pick the lottery numbers, you should not say, "Dear God, let me win the lottery." You should say something like, "Dear God, please put me on the timeline where these are the winning numbers." So it's possible. I haven't won yet. I've got, a couple of bucks, but I'm trying
It's
to.
supposed to be that belief that you've already done it, not even that, please let me do it. No, I've done this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And
Yeah. Well,
it happens. Yeah.
did you hear that?
It's the law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
That whole, and when the first time I ever saw The Secret, I was, they have that whole example of, setting the intention to get your correct parking spot. And so when I headed out later that day, I was headed to the grocery store, and I'm like, all right, fine, let me see if this works. And I just, I set that intention for a specific parking lot or a parking spot. And sure enough, that spot was there. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, it's really trivial parking spot, but
Mhm.
it sure did work
Well,
that day. So yeah.
that's a friend of mine's like, he lost his father, unfortunately, when he's like 16 now, but I think his father passed when he was like 8 or 9. And so he's asking me, he's like, "I keep seeing dimes everywhere. Are these angelic signs?" I'm like,
Mhm.
I think you're just seeing dimes. Because if you really want to test it, say something like, "Put me down to 50 or 100. Then I'll believe in you. Then I'll know if the synchronicity is really there, or if I can really manifest my father showing up." And so far, no 50s or 100s have showed up yet. But a girl can dream.
Well, keep putting it out there. It's that whole, you have to like 100% wholeheartedly believe that, not that it's going to happen, but it already has.
It's
already happened.
somewhere in time all over again when he looks at the penny and he goes,
oh yeah, and then boom, you're gone. And yeah, you reminded him, because that was a thing there where he had essentially set his, and I know it's a fictional story, but it's based on real principles.
Is it?
It is. It is.
I think it's true. No.
I mean, no, it's
I know somebody made a book out of it.
I mean, it's
true.
For one. I mean, the movie was at the Grand Hotel, and the book was actually was the Coronado Hotel in San Diego. So it's already, yeah. But in any case, it's based on real principles. And so when he essentially projected himself, he willed his consciousness back to the other point in time. He had set his frequency to be, back in, on the film, it's 1912. So yeah, once he saw that penny, it reminded him, oh, I'm out of time. I'm at a different point in time. I'm actually from 1980. It broke that synchronization, and he was popped out of that.
Yep. Yeah. That's why we should get rid of the penny.
That's why we should get rid of
down with the pennies. Yeah, but I think you could do that. I mean, you saw how he ended up. He was so withered, and I don't even think he was in his body anymore. He was somewhere in time.
Well, I mean, they showed him. Basically, he died of depression, in that he was. That's the one thing that really bothers me about that film is, like, if he was able to do it once, just do it again. Like, and I know they showed him, oh, please, I want to go back, that sort of thing. But just chill, take a breather, and go back and do it again.
It's not that easy. I mean, because
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. But so basically, they had him die of depression. They showed him projecting out of his body, and she was there waiting for him.
Oh,
yeah.
It's like the Ghost of Mrs. Muir. Oh, that was a good movie. Anyway.
Yes, it was. And then they had the television show as well.
Yes, but Jean Tierney was in Houston. I did not know that. I would have gone and seen her.
Okay.
Anyway. Okay.
What the heck was I watching? Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, John Barry does the soundtrack for Somewhere in Time. And the whole scene where Richard dies and he's being lifted out of his body and he can see himself on the bed, and then he goes out the window and sees her. The music that plays there is very, very similar. I had a Connecting the Universe live stream a few weeks ago talking about is our universe in a black hole, because that was some scientific stuff that came out here a few weeks back. And I actually still have it sitting here, the little the little record, the little story record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Remember
I remember those.
Remember these? Yeah. So, so I was talking I was talking about that film during that live stream, and actually the music for that film is also John Barry. And when they go through the black hole and they start seeing all this wild stuff, and when it's the crew of the ship going to the new universe or whatever, the music is so very, very similar to the music that he uses when Richard is going to see Elise in heaven or wherever they're at.
But it's a variation of Rachmaninoff, so I mean, yeah, could have just really been a fan.
That ending piece is the main score is like ending heaven pieces is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I have the record. Yeah, it's in the other room, but
yeah, I've got the CD, and then I've got it on was it Apple Music? Yeah. So no, I love that soundtrack. Absolutely.
Yeah. It has something when you hear the pops and the crackles. Just it sounds
with
like
the old
better.
vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in any case, the whole point of that is the whole point of that is, yeah, I mean, I believe absolutely that you can project your consciousness, whether it's to another point in time. I believe you can project it to these other dimensions and go visit these other realms. Absolutely. And when you even do things like past life regression, like QHHT and these sorts of things, your consciousness is actually going back to these other points in time, and you are there and you are visiting it. It's not just a vision. It's not fanciful in your mind. Your consciousness is going back to these other points in, seeing the whole thing play or experiencing it. A lot of people actually are in themselves and experiencing, that past life.
Yeah. And you have the emotional reaction to, did I ever tell you my Titanic story?
I think you did. Yeah, but go ahead. The viewers probably haven't.
Why not? Where have you been? When we were, well, I didn't end up going, but when you went to Ireland, one of the places we were going to go was Spike Island. Is that right?
Yeah, we went to Spike Island. Yeah.
Okay. And there was the last remaining sections of a dock that the Titanic stopped at.
Yeah. That's in Cove. Spike Island is out in the bay or harbor or whatever. Yeah, Cove is the last stop the Titanic made. Yeah.
Okay.
And the dock is still there.
When we were talking to oh gosh, I forgot the guest name. Dr. Dave and Carla, a long time ago.
Yeah. That was a few years back. Yeah.
That was a hot minute. Because I remember actively 9 of my past lives, and I asked him, why do I always remember the death? And he's like, well, that's the most important thing that's stuck in your mind. That's the last thing you remember. So you almost always remember your death and whatever this past life is. So one of my past lives, I was actually on the Titanic, and I remember it took a lot for me to watch the Titanic movie last week. I had to stop it, because I was crying and everything. Toby would look at me like, what's going on? So, it took like 4 days to watch it. Plus it's incredibly long, but I could see everything from like my knees down, and I could see the water. I knew I was a male. I knew I was like 25, 27, somewhere in there. I knew I was from Ireland. And I could see the water coming in, and then I died. So another guest we had on, Ariana
Ariana, she's the one I did my first past life regression with. Yeah, she's a QHHT practitioner. Yeah,
it's like a Fisher Price, my first past life essentially. Yeah. But she did one for me also, and so she took me back to the Titanic, and I was like, I want to know who I was, and she goes, well, it'd be really easy. You could find the manifest, because they got on in Ireland. Find out, how old you are. You're a male. I'm like, why didn't I think of this before? And so I found the manifest, and I sorted it, and there were 3 men who were practically the right age, the right place, the right time, and they got on in Ireland. And so I sorted it out, and one of the guys that was on there was named Thomas Henry. I'm like, okay. It just so happens my favorite uncle, the black sheep of the family, the other person like me, is Henry Thomas. I'm like, whoa, this just can't be, this has got to be a sign, because. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, that was probably who I was.
That's probably who you are. There you go. Interesting.
Yeah. So yesterday was kind of it's always a hard day. Like I can't go to the Titanic exhibits or the museums, watching the movie. There's a video game out that's not the Titanic. It's the gigantic, and it's the same
concept. Yeah.
It's like I recognize the halls. I know how to get out of the escape rooms. And my daughter's like, "Oh, how do you know?" I'm like, "I know."
Layout. I've actually touched a piece of the Titanic. There's a Titanic museum in Orlando that has a lot of artifacts, and they've recreated the grand staircase and all this.
Oh wow!
But they actually have like a piece of the hole that they brought up, and there's a little hole there where you can put your finger in and actually touch it. And you're like, I touched the Titanic. Yeah.
Wow. So my CE5 friends, I don't know how they got it, and they won't tell me, because they'll threaten to kill me if I knew, probably. They have some artifacts from the Titanic, and they're in little bitty glass. I don't know how they got them. They won't tell me.
Yeah, that's unless it was like passed down, because there are
okay, maybe.
Yeah, because there are people who have some artifacts that back then, when things were kind of I don't know, kind of dredged up, and people, there's somebody out there who makes like little clocks or something like that out of the railing from the grand staircase and things like that. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's like they're really not supposed to have that, but somehow back in the day they acquired, the family acquired, whatever. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So Michelle has I guess a request. I believe I brought back an Egyptian energy after my near-death experience. It stays with me. Mot. I would appreciate thoughts. So Mot
Ooh.
is the the goddess with the scale. So this is part um, of the afterlife journey. So as you go through the halls of Amenti, you're guided by Anubis, one of the people that he presents you before is Mott, and your your life is Wade. Yeah, your wife is Wade.
It's got the scales.
She's too light. She's too heavy. You got to go back and get a new one. No.
Hi.
That's interesting that that Mott's energy is with you. I mean, yeah, so that's an interesting thing when we connect with some of these kind of like iconic entities, whether that's because I've known people that were talking or have a relationship with like Isis or Anubis or Enki, and these sorts of people. So I think that there's a lot of these, even though they have the function, Mott has the function with the scales. I mean, she's not sitting there all day with the scales. I mean, she has other functions. She has other energies and things like that. So I think that they can serve as a guide, and they've been around for a long time. They have a greater view of the universe and can act as a guide in that case. So that's about as much insight as I can give on that. But that's what I believe. You have, and she, because of her function and what she does, she has probably, what's the right way to put this? Giving you a better, I don't know, like gift of discernment, that sort of thing. Yeah, like gift of discernment. So you know when when somebody's bullshitting you and they're not, that sort of thing.
That's interesting. Do you think you can channel and connect with different entities? Because I have friends who they swear they connect with Hecate or Thor or Freya.
Yeah,
that people do. Yeah.
Well, and you have to also understand, like, okay, so it's really a type of spirit energy. So the different cultures gave them different names, right? Mm-hmm. So like Enki, Thoth, these sorts of things, they're really kind of the same, person, same entity, God of knowledge, that sort of thing. You have what Anubis is the same as Charon, right? Where Charon would ferry people over the river Styx, or what was it? Acheron as well. So, that idea of ferrying people into the afterlife. Well, Anubis was the guide for the Egyptians as the afterlife. It's the same function. Same as like the Grim Reaper, it's the same function. But it's just, they're calling it a different name.
That's kind of funny, because we had a dog who had a face like Anubis. My husband would open the door and scream, Nigel, dog of the dead, Anubis, come on in, And
I mean, he was a jackal, which is a type of,
But we didn't have a lot of neighbor friends. I think we scared him off,
Yeah. So Michelle saying, wow, my abilities went through the roof when I came back to my body. So is Mott energy doing this? I mean, possibly. It could be one of those. I mean, I don't know what happened during your near-death experience, but it could be a situation there where perhaps you met her, or that particular entity who in the Egyptian culture presents herself as Mott, and there could be something that she has done to connect with you to help you here. So you're relating to her here now. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't know precisely what happened here. So
a friend and I were discussing that a few weeks ago, and I told her I just felt like I was cosmically constipated, like there is a block, and once that block is removed, things can open up. And so I've been listening to Daryl Bashar.
Bashar, yeah.
Bashar, yeah, he's amazing. He's opened up a lot. I don't know. It's all about perspective too. Maybe you're sensing something different, and you're able to connect easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we are kind of winding down here. I think we made the best of this, Victoria.
Yes. And only
Yeah, no,
one.
it's going to be a really interesting discussion tonight. So sometimes we just need to wing it like this. So, yeah, we'll have Geraldine on in May. So she was very, very apologetic that she was not able to attend tonight, but we will have her on because she does have some fascinating experiences. Plus, I mean, she's an epigenetic psychotherapist. She's a clinical hypnotherapist. Does all of these different things. She's a qigong instructor and all of these wonderful things. In addition to her experiences that we would also like to discuss. We could probably have 2 separate shows with her. So,
yeah. I have a lot of questions to ask her later.
Yeah. No, I figured you were probably going to go. I figured you were probably going to go more down her like her clinical work, right? Am I right on that? More of like her hypnotherapy. Oh, you were going to have questions about the experiences. Okay.
No, I don't know about her experiences. I had questions about healing, quantum healing. How do you heal?
Okay. So more for clinical work. Yeah.
Oh, was that clinical work? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
And
so I had my notes are more front loaded to the abduction experiences that she's had. So yeah. So we'll have her on sometime in May. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds really interesting. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if going back to your story of your time loss when you were pregnant, there might be something that she says that you key in on and that you're like, whoa, that's actually what I felt and I experienced. So it may give you some answers. Yeah.
Well, I asked Ariana when we were doing our regression. I was like, did that really happen? Did somebody come and intervene? And she's like, yeah. And I asked her, well, why am I being watched? And she said, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
So yeah, I'm going to have to connect you with Kate. So, because she does, she's a QHHT practitioner. She does the past life regressions. And so you would probably be interested in talking with her. She'd probably be interested in talking with you. So we'll have to make that connection happen.
We'll have to have wine and wine time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, everybody. Mike. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up because of the nature of the way this show occurred. We're just going to cut it off here and no after show for this evening. So sorry. Sorry, Tom. I know he's patiently waiting down in there, but yeah, it's all right. So, all right, everybody. So those are listening to the podcast version of this later. Please, of course, join us every Wednesday night, 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, connectinguniverseportal.com. I do need to let you guys know for the next, I think it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks or is it 3? Yeah, next 3 weeks, nothing. So I'm going to be out in the UK. I do come back before the 7th, but I am not going to be way too jet lagged and all that sort of thing to even put it. Plus, I don't even have time to put something together. So we will be back on May, I think the 14th. Yep. 14th. So that might be the date that we end up doing with Geraldine, because we got the 14th and 21st open in May for her to come back. So I'll coordinate with her on one of those dates.
Sorry. On the 7th, you can always join me on When Spirit Connects because we're doing some really cool things with double Estes sessions.
Well, I think that's the week my uncle is in town, or he's in town mostly while I'm gone, but he's down in San Diego. And those 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, are the 2 days that I have a possibility of getting together for dinner with him. I think they're looking to do that on that Wednesday over at my aunt's house. So
other people can tune in.
Other people can tune in. There you go.
Yeah. Well, have a good dinner. That sounds fun.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, everybody. Until next time. Time really exists.